Welcome to the Scaling Japan Podcast, a podcast about how to grow your business from $100,000 and beyond in the land of the rising sun.
Welcome to the Scaling Japan Podcast. I'm your host, Tyson Batino, and on today's episode, we have Elizabeth Ann Kyle. She is the founder and CEO of Arigato Travel, which has scaled to the #1 culinary tours company in Japan with more than 500 plus trained guides and is still rapidly growing in 2024. And I've known about Elizabeth Ann from the beginning when it was still Arigato Japan Food Tours. And I've been very happy to see it scaled to where it is today. And so Elizabeth Ann, I'll pass it on to you. Could you please introduce yourself?
Very humbled by that wonderful introduction. Thank you very much. I am Elizabeth Ann Kyle. I am originally from the Philippines. My love story with Japan started at a very young age. It was a trip with my mom and my brother over the summer, and instantly I knew that there was something special about this place. So 12 years old, fell in love with Japan, returned when I was 19, and it's been 26 amazing years, and I'm blessed with a beautiful family and two wonderful children. I had an early start being an entrepreneur, I would say, as early as 7 years old, selling pens, candies, and anything you can imagine at school. So I was really an annoying classmate to sit right next to. As you mentioned, I am the CEO and founder of what used to be Arigato Japan Food Tours and now Arigato Japan Travel. I started the company about 8 years ago now out of my love for travel, food, and meeting people. For those of you who don't know, we are an inbound travel company that helps people experience the best of Japan through food, culture, and local experiences. And we are the biggest culinary company in Japan with over 40 food tour experiences in 7 different cities. And over time, we have diversified our services into prefecture consulting, bespoke VIP tours, multi-day itineraries, guide training programs, corporate team building, marketing support for business and prefectures, and so much more. And we are happily growing and learning in the travel industry, and we've welcomed over 47,000 guests. So we're quite
growing, yes, and growing and growing and growing.
Yeah. And today I'm just very grateful to be able to share to everyone my incredible journey from what we've learned, what we didn't do very well, and hopefully to share some insights to those who are thinking about starting a business or scaling their. So yeah.
Cool. Nuts. Very excited to have you on the podcast. And I think the timing with which you started the company was amazing too, kind of like similar to my experience in that you're able to really scale it really quickly. And so I think this is going to be a kind of an interesting chat. Oh, one thing I want to just ask was, what are the 7 cities you're in?
We are in Tokyo, Kyoto, Osaka, Nagoya, Hiroshima, and in Shizuoka.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah, and we are expanding in many other cities. Very inspired to do that in the next coming years.
Excited to see the continued growth. And I guess my next question would be, what is your target market and how do you help them?
Target market is anyone coming to Japan from, families, couples, corporate clients, pretty much anyone who wants to come here and experience the food and culture of Japan. We get a lot of our sales from our website, and we sell the tours with many different travel partners. From OTAs or online travel agencies such as Expedia, Viator, and so much more. And we work with many other travel agencies in Japan and also overseas.
And what do you think was kind of like your special sauce or competitive advantage, kind of thinking in hindsight?
Right. I think number one is flexibility. It's fascinating how Japan is like the land of omotenashi, but where everything is just, the service is excellent, but there's very little flexibility on many things. It's either set A, B, or C. I think over time, being a foreigner, I am able to understand where flexibility is needed. And that's not very common in many companies, especially in the travel industry in Japan. I was able to really understand on where I can add value. So that is something that many travel agents and many travelers are looking for. So flexibility was number one for our special sauce. And as for our team, I would say that my team is very multicultural. We have at least 20 different nationalities, and
Mm.
everybody loves teamwork and cross cultural communication. It's just so much a part of our DNA. And we are lifelong learners and storytellers. As you know, Steve Jobs once said that the most powerful people in the world are storytellers. And I think me and the rest of my team are grateful to have that opportunity to
Mm.
be able to share, the best of Japan, to be able to share like wonderful stories with our guests. So that really keeps us motivated and inspired each day.
Cool. No, that sounds pretty cool because I was thinking, I think even when you started the company, people could research things out online. They could do it themselves, but you had to offer something special to,
Right.
let's say, to actually
Yeah.
pay for a tour
Yes.
and make the experience more memorable than
Right.
if doing it on your own.
Yeah. I mean, we want to be able to like create experiences that are impactful and memorable, right? To be able to share something where people can learn about the culture, the local people, and hear about their stories. And we're always just committed to crafting something that's, transformative and something that people will talk about for the rest of their lives over Christmas dinners and holidays.
Yes, that's kind of,
Right.
let's say, you're in the business of creating positive memories, actually.
Right. Yeah. Transformative experiences. And I am just always grateful and inspired to be in this industry.
And so I think I'm ready to dive into stage one, where
Right.
you did tons and tons of tours on your own. It's
Yes.
you didn't have like a big wad of like you didn't get like $100,000 to start your business.
No, no, absolutely not.
So please tell us, yeah. So please tell us about stage one.
Yeah, sure. So, stage one, we went from being a cooking school to a food tour company. So, a lot of people really don't know that this was our humble beginning. So we started as a cooking school. I opened the kitchen in Azabujuban, and this business was inspired by a travel in Europe. I joined a cooking class with a market experience and thought, oh, I can definitely do this in Japan. So I came back home, told my husband, hey, I have a wonderful business idea. He didn't like it. He said I should wait. I said, no, we should definitely do it now. So we bootstrapped. Yeah. He was like, you should have a business plan first. I'm like, right. I'll give you that later. Let's just do it now. I think
It's
this industry is really growing, and now is the time.
I'm laughing because I know your husband.
Yeah, right. So you can imagine the resentment in the beginning. So we bootstrapped the company with only 2 million yen in capital. And that wasn't a lot because most of that money went to the down payment for the kitchen, especially in Azabujuban being very center. So we started with very little money, and we were offering cooking classes to foreigners who want to experience a little bit of the culture. That's like making sushi, tempura, and simple Japanese dishes. So it was a good business concept, but we quickly realized that this was not easily scalable business model. As we were running the cooking classes, on the third month of the business is when I decided to start running our first food tour in the Yurakocho and Ginza area. So that was also like starting to make money as well because I was the guide, I conceptualized everything, I didn't have to hire people. But we thought that it's impossible to run both the food tour and the cooking class. So on the 6 months is when we made a pivotal decision to just shut down the kitchen and focus on the food tours. And so we did that. The first tour in Osaka and in Kyoto, we were able to launch them on just the 6 months of the establishment of the business. And I think that was a very bold decision, and not many startups will change their decision that fast, especially with Japan being a very risk adverse society. So we were able to do that in the beginning and not make the cooking class last very long. And we are so happy that we made that decision.
And I saw that you did 300 tours on your own.
It was exhausting, I'm telling you. And, running everything on my own, it was not easy. But, I think overall, it really gave me the experience that I needed to have, understanding our products, where mistakes are made and where we can grow. I wouldn't have it any other less because I know my business from top to bottom. It was a great practice for me, great experience. And yeah, it was really a point where when we validated that there is a market for food tours, and there is. Not a lot of people know that culinary tourism market is a growing industry. And in 2020, it was about $805 billion. So there's really opportunity to be made, and we saw that.
And for the listeners, I really love how Elizabeth Ann did 300 tours on her own, just to really validate the market, really understand the customer. And, I do advisory mentorship for startups who've raised even like $3 million, $1 million.
Wow.
And I still tell them, you don't know your customer well enough.
Exactly.
So I love how you did that. Let's say that set the solid foundation. And you mentioned that, so I think the travel industry has been a legacy industry in Japan. And so I'm sure you faced a lot of challenges, but what are some of the challenges that you've faced in stage one?
Yeah, stage one was very hard because it's all about building trust as a foreigner. And that goes with restaurants, suppliers, local travel agencies, and many other stakeholders. Like, why would they trust a foreigner who has no credibility at this point? And it wasn't easy. It took a lot of hard work to overcome this. And even myself, I was like hitting so many roadblocks, and I was thinking, how do I grow in an industry where I was considered an outsider to begin with? So that was really hard, but I kept pushing, never stopped. And I think the next challenge is proving authenticity. Like, it's hard enough that I'm a foreigner. And so what I did in the beginning was I just hired full-on Japanese guides.
Oh, interesting.
Right. And I'm like, okay, that's good. Maybe, it will prove my authenticity. But it's something about it did not feel right. And I think I was missing something. And I realized that, how come a person like me or someone like you, Tyson, who's lived in Japan for a long time, how can we not share our love and passion for what we do for Japan, right? So I really changed my tactic and started forming a multicultural team that can support one another, that can grow with each other. And I think that was really, the perfect recipe for us, because over time, we were able to just like really support and understand one another on so many levels. So yeah, I think those two were very hard. And I want to add that, 8 years ago, being a virtual or remote company was very hard. It's enough to raise eyebrows when you were giving meshi and they're asking for a meeting and you say, oh, I am actually just a rental office or a remote company, right?
Yes,
So
not non-existent. Yeah.
it's like Ayashi.
Yeah, exactly. It's very suspicious.
Yeah, you're foreign. Are you even registered in Japan? So stuff like that. It was hard, but now being a remote virtual company, it's such a cool thing. But yeah, doing this 8 years ago, oh my goodness, it was very challenging.
And yeah, I think you talked about your special sauce a little bit. So yes, I think some of the solutions. I think you mentioned that in our private chat that you offshored your first hire, but could you tell us more about that?
Right. So before this startup, I had another startup. I had a trading company selling beauty products to Filipinos only living in Japan. And I thought, if I'm the only person selling it, maybe I can change the business model, have 80, 20 people in the Philippines doing it. So that's kind of like what inspired me to do this. So instead of hiring someone in Japan, I didn't have a lot of money at this point. We've used it so much for the cooking school. So I couldn't hire someone in Japan. So I thought, okay, oh, I forgot. There's a lot of like people that I can just hire back in the Philippines who are very talented, English proficient, who can you can answer my emails and help me get organized. So I think this is an opportunity that other businesses should really think about. If you are not able to hire someone in Japan, why not think of like offshoring that job, that piece somewhere else? So that really helped me focus on growing the business and taking care of other things that will help me generate more revenue as I grow. So that's number one solution that I did. And I think I was talking earlier about having difficulty gaining trust with business travel agents in Japan. What I did is I took my business overseas. Domestic connections were proving to be so hard here in Japan, and I realized, okay, if this is really hard, maybe there's another avenue to this. So I started being more creative and finding travel agencies outside of Japan who are
Gotcha.
bringing people here, right? And then I offered my flexibility. How can we work together? What can we do? And that proved very instrumental because, in Japan, as you know, we will have one, two, three, even 10 meetings and not even know if we have a done business deal. Whereas, overseas, we can have a Skype call back then. What can you do? What can I do? Can we work together? Maybe not, maybe yes. It was faster. So we were able to like close partnerships faster,
Mm.
easier with less time. And I want to mention that I didn't do this alone. Even on stage one, a very instrumental person in the growth of the business is Lauren. Lauren is a wonderful person, friend, and she has really helped me take the business to where it is now. So she's instrumental on both stage one and stage two, and I'll talk a little bit more about her and my team later.
And yeah, I think having just kind of like your co-pilot or wingman, wingwoman is really instrumental in helping you scale faster.
Exactly. You build the company, you build the plane as you fly, and there's so many. If you're the pilot, great, but you're gonna need help. And I definitely got a lot of help from my team, and I'm always grateful for that.
And second, outsourcing to the Philippines for like about 100,000 yen a month, you can find someone who probably already has 1 to 2 years experience, maybe 3 years experience, writing emails, taking
Right.
care of your bookings, and doing everything you want already. And they might even know, they'll probably know more than you in a lot of cases.
Exactly. Yeah, and they're very talented, extremely hardworking, and I think a lot of businesses should really look into this because it's especially for people in the tourism industry. Like it's so hard to find a bilingual person to help you do the job, and if it's booking or administrative work, then that can easily be offshored. So it's really something to consider.
And so I guess next would be, what are some of the advantages you had and how did you utilize them?
Advantages, I think the foreign mindset was very instrumental also at this point. Like, being able to pivot and do very drastic decisions and stand by them. And also, like, putting your creative thinking hat on and not being demotivated by any obstacle that comes your way. Because I experienced a lot of doors being shut, being a foreign entity, foreign owned company, and I just went through it and find other ways. I think we have that in our DNA, just like powering through challenges and not giving up. And I think that really helped, especially in growing the business from stage one.
And you hinted a bit about flexibility and
Mhm.
like how it really helped you, but could you kind of tell us how being flexible helped you get more clients?
Right. For example, dietary restrictions so hard to handle, right? Like you would expect that Japan will just offer vegan options or vegetarian options, and that's very common in many parts of the world. I was very fascinated when I was in London last year when I attended WTM or World Travel Market. And going to many restaurants, there were vegan options, vegetarian options in many places. And that's really not that easy in Japan. Try going to a kaiseki place and requesting for a vegan, and that's not
Mm,
an easy ask, where the cornerstone of the taste of the food comes from dashi, which we know is not vegan at all, right? So even with things as simple as dietary restrictions, it's hard for people to understand. And I think little things like when you travel here, it was pretty interesting. We were at a restaurant with a group of clients, and one of them just asked for an extra something, like an extra a serving of vegetables. And I kid you not, the managers came. It was a very hard discussion, and it's just an extra serving of vegetable. So I think you understand how because we're so used to, like I mentioned, the very rigid, like it's either set A or B. You can't go outside of the box. You can't go beyond that. And for travelers who are coming here, they find that very challenging when you come to a place where, like I mentioned, the omotenashi is of the highest level. You buy a $1 candy, it gets wrapped in a $3 wrapper given to you, people bow down. It's a little hard how something so small can't be accommodated. So I am able to like navigate those difficult situations and offer solutions not just to travelers but also to other businesses.
gotcha. And you did talk about some of the challenges before, and I want to dive deep into a couple more.
Hmm.
But I think uh, in our prep, like you mentioned that you lost some business to some Japanese companies.
Right.
Could you tell us more about that?
So, as I mentioned, trust was very hard to gain in the early stage of the business. So, I would, for instance, go to a hotel and say, hey, I am I'm promoting culinary experiences. If you have any guests who want to have a wonderful experience, show them around for a 3 hour wonderful journey in Ginza or in a place, right? And over time, it proved very hard because these establishments would prefer going to a Japanese owned company. It was, as I mentioned, that's where proving authenticity was hard, and getting them to trust you that even though you're a foreign, that you will do it the Japanese way and understand their needs was not easy, extremely hard to handle, especially in the early stage of the business.
And I thought the hiring only Japanese tour guides at the beginning, at first to kind
Mhm.
of prove the authenticity. And
Yes,
I thought that was a very unique hack.
right.
So that was a pretty cool strategy. But I know
Right.
that you ended up transitioning to more of a multicultural. But could you tell us a little bit more about what was the catalyst for that transition and how it has benefited you?
Right, because I think to grow you need a team, and at this point, I was having more and more people help me do the tours because I've already expanded in Osaka, like on the 6 month of the business. So it was hard for me to fulfill the tours, and like I mentioned, only Japanese guides were very authentic. It's gonna be great, but then I just didn't feel like I was getting the sense of having this team of um, a collaborative team where everyone like really supports one another. It's more like I'm going to do my tour and then that's it, and it's very hard for to have everybody open up to what will make us a great team. And I started, like I said, I started experimenting with hiring more and more local guides, and I really saw the change on, like, number one was storytelling. I learned from the guides that I hired earlier on that there's a very different way of, first of all, when you go on a domestic tour, there's a very different way for Japanese guides to deliver information, right?
Mm.
Sometimes I almost want to call it like the Wikipedia version. It's very information and numbers heavy. And I wasn't quite getting the right formula. And over time, adding more people who are much more open minded, who are extremely passionate in sharing Japan in many ways and forms, proved to be the perfect formula. We are now able to like have a group of storytellers who can really together come up with a wonderful experience. So I think over time we perfected that piece, and everyone's just been tremendously supportive. Like our Japanese guides help us see things from like a true Japanese perspective, and the foreign guides like see things differently from the eyes
Mm.
of a foreigner who wants to be able to experience the true meaning of Japan, right? So
Yeah.
it's really a combination of both.
Yeah, the combination of both being able to combine their unique insights to deliver a higher quality service
Absolutely.
that matches the needs of the customers, which
And
you
that was
need
perfect.
both to achieve.
Yes, perfect recipe. Yeah, for guides together, thinking collaboratively that way.
Cool. And yeah, I guess my next question would be did you have kind of like unique insights for growing your company in stage one?
Outsource, offshore, delegate, automate, wherever you can. I think I can't stress how that is extremely important to, having the business run by one person to a team of 10, 20 at this point. Don't do everything yourself and just focus on what you're good at. And a good CEO should be able to like zoom in and out and see the bigger picture of where and see where the business needs to be. I think over time, I was really able just to focus on my strengths and understood where help is needed. I have very little ego. Like I am not afraid to say, I don't know this, but I'll find a solution, right? I think some people are just so afraid to say that, hey, I don't know this piece because they are the CEO or the founder. I'm never like that. I'm always open to criticism, and my team, anyone on my team can come to me and say, I think this will work. Let's talk about it.
This episode of the Scaling Japan podcast is sponsored by Hashi Media, your agency for doing influencer marketing in Japan. Learn more about them in the show notes. Cool. No, I also think that's really important because I find that with many owners, CEOs, they are it's Or I'll say you'll probably never find a CEO who says that, no, I tell my people don't talk to me. No one will ever say that. But the result is, do actually people bring ideas to you? And
Right.
that will answer the question if you've created an environment where people feel safe and comfortable and encouraged to bring ideas to the CEO.
Right. Yeah. And I think, over time, we are quite proud of the team that we've created. It's not the communication is very horizontal. Anyone can come and say, "I think this is good," and we together we come up with the best decisions. And over time, many of our guides, many of the people on our team really appreciated that. I think we know that in Japan, the communication style in many companies is not always the easiest. You can't always express what you want. But we are not a Japanese company. We're not a traditional Japanese company to begin with. So, yeah, over time, the ideas and suggestions from the people on our team really helped us grow and improve whatever is needed.
And yes, I think you talked a lot about delegation, automation, outsourcing. How about utilizing your strengths?
Right. As I mentioned earlier, I think utilizing your strength is also very, very crucial at this point. Look at what you're very good at. Um, I would say that it's important for CEOs and founders to be optimistic, but also be very realistic. When I first started, I was optimistic in having 47 food tours in all prefectures. I thought that was a great idea. I was going to conquer every region in Japan. But you know what? That wasn't realistic. So I think understanding that piece, like you, it's also very important. You can't always just take on opportunities, right? You have to be able to understand what it is that you can do very well, and maybe focus on that. Don't get distracted by 10,000 ideas, because ultimately being distracted is not good for you and not good for the whole team in general.
Yeah, and that's one of the challenges. So I do advise a lot of companies, and I'll say that's probably a top 3 to 5 issue actually, where the
Right.
founder has too much flavors of the week or shiny object syndrome. And so like I actually have to tell them like, no, it's more like find opportunities that match
Right.
your long-term vision,
Yeah, I
as
love that.
opposed to jumping into, oh, this, or the comment I get is like, oh, my friend's friend or my friend's wife is looking for a job. It's like,
Right.
do you actually, or you need help with marketing? Can they do marketing? No. Okay, the answer is no.
Yeah, that's so true. I really agree with you on that one.
Yeah, I guess also for stage one, I guess my last question would be like, did you have to adapt your personality in any way to succeed? And I guess to make it out of this stage?
Right. I think I am a very resilient person, and I never take no for an answer. Like, so many doors were shut, but I kept on knocking and knocking until somebody opened. I didn't have an easy upbringing in life. I really worked hard for everything that I wanted. So I think that helped me in understanding the path of where I wanted to be. I could have easily given up, but I didn't. I recognize that this is not going to be an easy journey. This is unexplored territories for me, but I am very committed. I'm going to do everything it takes to be very successful. And I had very specific timelines on where I wanted to be when I established the company. I said on the third month, it's going to be like this. I'm going to open the first food tour. On the sixth month, I'm going to explore, I'm going to expand in Kyoto and in Osaka. And at the end of the year, this is how much revenue we will have. I'm very focused that way. And I think really just not giving up and believing in yourself is something that any CEO or anyone who's thinking about scaling their business should always remember. And I think I always look back to the days when I first came to Japan with nothing, and it was very, very hard. So that always like sticks in my head when there's a difficulty that I cannot overcome. I look back to the days when everything was so much more harder. And whenever I change my mindset is when ideas come and I'm able to like come up with something better that will improve the company overall.
Very well said. Yeah, now it's time to move on to stage two. So I guess
Right.
what were some of the, I guess, the defining factors of stage two and the transition to it?
Yeah, so stage two is going from just being a food tour company to becoming a full fledged inbound company. So this involves more people, and I always say that stage one was BC, before children, and stage two is two kids with a bigger team and more responsibilities. It was easier. I would say that's easier starting stage one without having children, and now it's challenging but rewarding on so many levels.
It's like
I,
learning to be a good parent while learning to, let's say,
I
evolve
know,
yourself for the growing pains of the company.
right? And it's you only have so much bandwidth and many hours in a day to be able to like handle both. So it's been a fascinating journey. So yeah, stage one, I would say, was just about, it's like building a house, right? Like I built the house, I had a blueprint, I had some people helping me. And stage two now is about solidifying the foundation of that house and involving more people, involving more systems and processes, and being able to understand what you are able to handle. You can't always say yes to everything. And stage two really change the company's direction. This is when I had my A team really step up and help me grow the company to where it is now. And number one person on the team would be Lauren. She is our partner, one of the partners, our general manager. She loves to be called the chief of many, many hats. And she is. She's really a genius. She knows everything about any topic. And she's really helped build systems and really grow teams. She's got over 20 years of experience in the hospitality and F&B industry. And we have very different skill set, and together we complement one another. And I'm just grateful to have her every day helping me and supporting me make the best decisions for the company. So that's Lauren. And then I have Chris. Chris is our tech guru who happens to be Lauren's husband. He is really responsible in our automation and optimization, because without him, I don't know what kind of website we will have to be able to handle all of the bookings, because we've really grown so much. In 2017, we only had about 4,000 people on our tours, but now we've had about 47,000. So imagine that is a lot of work. So Chris, who happens to be Lauren's husband, is really a tech guru, and I'm thankful that he is able to help us in making our operation smooth every day.
No,
And
I
lastly,
think for Lauren, I think it's great that you have. I think especially to make it out of stage one, you need someone who's kind of like a plug and play. Like wherever it needs help, you plug them in there, and they
yes,
get it
yes,
working.
yeah, absolutely. And she is that person. And yeah, she is. We have like different superpowers, and it was great to have her in the foundational starts of the business. And lastly, I am thankful to have the support of my loving husband, Matt, who is our CFO. He helps us make direction and strategy decision, and he is an expert on financial management and budgeting. And his motto is zero headache. So weekly, he helps us set the priorities. So really, stage two is us stepping up to like bigger responsibilities. And this also means the segregation of superpowers of the people on my A team. But beyond these three wonderful people, I also have the support of different managers HR, social media, and marketing, and all of that. And I am thankful that even after COVID, many of our teams stuck with us. And we have continuously grown and we are continuously learning. But yeah, I think stage two, we are much more matured, much more experienced, and ready to face more challenges and bigger projects and handle bigger projects.
So that's why I kind of giggled when you mentioned like your husband said like, "What's the business plan?" It's definitely that CFO brain.
Oh yes, yeah, yeah. I think you know that by now. He is that type of person. He says this, we are going to do this and not do this, and yeah, collectively we are all great as a team.
I had a similar role as well, or I was the one who I did ops. Whatever the vision was, I'd have to execute it. So that's why, like, when I hear the ideas, like, okay, how are we going to execute this? So that sounds nice on paper, but
But right, not always so easy to execute. How does this make sense, right?
yeah, so cool. And I think you talked, and I think defining point for you too was, I think, or sorry. Do you have anything else to share on what defined kind of stage two for you?
I think anything else? I want to add that for stage two, we were able to grow a robust internship program, which I think some companies are not really thinking of. And we're proud to say that we are the official internship partner of Temple University's undergrad and business master's program. So we are working with interns from different fields such as IT, marketing, HR, and so on. And I think not a lot of startups are able to take advantage of this opportunity. Over time, it wasn't an easy thing that we were able to do. There's a lot of trial and errors involved, and eventually we were able to find very talented and hardworking interns from people from Pakistan, Estonia, Sweden, Trinidad and Tobago, from all over the world. And our two hires were from our interns. After Jess, who is our marketing manager, started as our intern, and Jason, who helps Jess every day, is also from our internship program. I think it's really worth thinking about how you can take advantage of this opportunity, because there's many interns out there who are also wanting to learn and be able to like share their skills as well as they step into the big corporate world. I think they need some kind of like training and support, and I think we have been able to provide that over time.
And I do have a confession. Heiken is a former intern from Temple University, and he's now my marketing manager as well.
Oh, wonderful. See, that's amazing.
We weren't paid by Temple University.
Well, there's so many great talent for sure, and they're just really trying to find ways to be able to connect with businesses.
Hello, listeners. I'm excited to announce my live cohort course to help you increase your sales in Japan. Many foreigners struggle to turn first meetings into second meetings because they lack a sales pamphlet that follows the standard format in Japan. Even if you have a good first meeting, your internal contact will hand over your current sales pamphlet to the decision maker, and they'll take one look and say, they don't get Japan. My live 4-session cohort course will teach you how to make a sales pamphlet in English using the standard format in Japan. You will receive a sales pamphlet template, more than 10 examples from Japanese companies, and a lot of feedback, so you can end the course with a sales pamphlet that gets more meetings and therefore more sales. Getting one extra deal will more than pay off the course, so joining is a no-brainer. You can find more details of the course at scalingyourcompany.com/sales pamphlet. And we'll have a link in the show notes.
And so I think you mentioned like some of the advantages you had was you had an amazing, I think you call it your A team.
Yes. Yeah, Matt,
And
Lauren, and Chris.
and I guess what were some other advantages you had to kind of push you in stage two?
Sorry, drinking some water. I think stage two, let's not forget. Oh, I want to mention accounting. Accounting was also it was a lesson that we learned over time, but that also like became one of the learning curves for stage two. I think when I started the business and I was doing, most of the tours to like having 10, 20 guides, I was very analog. I didn't fully understand how in the future I will be needing some kind of like accounting support or software. And it became harder from going from one guide to about 100 people uploading hundreds of receipts at any given time. So understanding how accounting can help you scale in the future is a very good thing to think about at the earlier stages of the business. I am fortunate enough to be able to capitalize on the services of my husband. Without his accounting support, I think it would be very hard for us because we grew so fast. We had so many bookings that it was hard to kind of like have visibility of your finances. And I think as you grow, you need to understand if you have healthy profit margins to even scale and handle, having more people on your team and being able to like pay for expenses that you incur on a daily basis. So over time, we were able to just perfect our accounting. And I think this is something that many people should really consider. A lot of CEOs get fixated on how to improve their marketing, hiring, and all of that, but no one really focuses so much on accounting. And we were through a great accounting service, we were able to understand that, hey, we're able to scale, hire more people, and go to where we want to be.
Cool. And yeah, I think Matt's service is, I think it's We Connect. Or I do make introductions to Matt, and I think they're great, especially if you're a company doing market entry to Japan, and
Right.
and you have a CFO, and you want to deal with someone who understands what a
Right.
CFO is going through.
Right. That's true.
For the accounting, I would like to agree with you a lot there. Like it's, I think, or I do help a lot of clients with most businesses. They wait for the accounting report from the accountant. Sometimes it takes like a month to get
Right.
in, or like a month, or I would say sometimes even maybe I've seen 2 months in a lot of cases where, February, you get let's say, how do you perform in February? You'll find out at the end of April. It's
Right.
like, how can you do investment decisions or like, decide to hire another person
Right.
based on that. And the other one that I think, or at least my clients like that I do when I show them, they're like, oh, wow, it's like I actually track all my subscriptions. So I know exactly how much I spend on software subscriptions a year. And that number is 130,000 yen
Oh, wow.
for a team of two.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah, just if you can especially get it, the faster you can get that information. And I think the other part I was going to say too is if you just make an accountant do it, you can focus on, the things that really impact. Like, let's say it's focusing less on compliance.
Right.
Like, let's say you studying compliance. Like, you shouldn't be studying compliance. Like, you should get experts to tell you about that.
Exactly.
Your job is really to grow the business.
Right.
Cool. And I think, yeah, so you faced probably among, I'll say probably the people we'll be interviewing, but you faced probably a top tier challenge.
Exactly.
And please tell us some more about that.
Yes, the global pandemic that we never expected. No one expected that happening. Yeah, so, before the pandemic, we hired and trained to be ready for the 2020 Olympics. And we didn't know that this pandemic was going to last that long. Nobody did. And I want to say that the global pandemic was a boot camp for all entrepreneurs. It didn't matter if you were small or you're the airline industry, right? Everybody got affected, and especially for people in the tourism industry. And I think this was a phase where it was so difficult to inspire, because personally, my morale was down, but we really strategized early stage of the pandemic. What we did is, again, we put our thinking hats on. What can we do? We cannot let this ruin us. Like, we have to be creative, and we did. Like, we pivoted right away. We were the first company in Japan to do online experiences, and we came up with not just one but 7 different online experiences to mixology, murder mystery, online hanami, travel to Japan. And one of our online experiences actually was with Shizuoka Prefecture. During the pandemic, we were able to convince them, this is probably the best time to raise awareness about Shizuoka. So let's make an online experience that we will promote to a bigger global audience. So yeah, instead of, mothballing and dwelling on, how we are not able to get over this, we were busier. We didn't rest. We were fortunately recognized by Forbes as one of the 15 online tours in Forbes magazine, and we even had a feature on BBC in one of their segments about the future of online travel. So, we survived the pandemic through government loans and support from the teams morally and emotionally to not give up. But yeah, I think this really says about the resilience of everybody on my team. We never gave up at a time when people lost faith. And we just kept on pushing forward. And I think over time that really helped us. When Japan reopened again, we had teams, we have people who were ready to take on tours. And yeah, I think over time it really helped us to stay relevant and not just be demotivated by the whole pandemic, although Japan was really one of the last to open the border, so that really hurt us financially.
Yeah, I experienced a similar one where, let's say, with our language schools, one is our Japanese language school. So a very similar situation. The borders closed down, and it's like, well, we're not going to get, let's say, I would say probably 50% of our customer base just disappeared immediately. And so,
Mm-hmm.
like, how do you? So I think that resilience point you mentioned, I think, but I think one thing that should be said is, I think because of all the work that you did previously, it
Right,
allowed your team to be resilient. Like, let's say your investment in team development,
right.
in empowering them. So, or sorry, I just, what I'm trying to communicate is, I think it's, let's say people might just hear resilient and just think it's, being resilient, which is true. But I also want to highlight that Elizabeth Ann did a lot of investment into the team and company, which, let's say, fostered that, let's say, behavior of resilience.
Right. And looking back, I always say that where we are right now, it's not just because of me. This is because of like the hardworking people, ever supportive people on my team. And this is a time when you don't let go of your people. I can never imagine losing everyone. How difficult it was starting this, and finding the right formula, the right teams to help you, really people who believed in you. And it was a time when I was not going to give up. Like, I've had so many challenges. Me, Lauren, and Matt, we all really just thought about how we can motivate the team as well. And I think we are very happy with the decision that we made. And I think we're always going to be grateful for that time, because many of our guides now are still around. They've been with us for a long time. And I think over time, we have created a culture of being able to support one another, not just through the good times, but especially through the bad.
And my last question would be, so I think as a lot of companies scale, I think one of the challenges they face is the quality of their service decreases.
Mm-hmm.
It could be in terms of the actual quality of the service, or like, the actual, like, the management internally. But for your case, I think you mentioned before that, like, you would relentlessly kind of watch the quality of the brand. But could you tell us a little bit more about that as you scaled in stage 2?
Right. And as you work with different teams, different suppliers, different people and stakeholders, there's only so much that you can handle on any given day. And I think over time, in many situations, the quality of service diminishes. And I have fully committed that even as we scale, we will always be dedicated to going over and beyond to be able to share experiences beyond the ordinary. And we are working very hard to find forward-thinking Japanese people, uh, entrepreneurs, sake brewery owners, and many more who share our vision. Because in the tourism industry world, it's also hard to understand how some companies are so traditional, yet they want to welcome inbound people. Again, this is where the inflexibility takes place, right? So over time, as we grow our offerings and services, we want to stay committed to being able to just deliver quality experiences over quantity. Like, no offense, but we don't really take bus tours because we love creating something that's special. And I will always be dedicated in doing that. Yeah, no matter how many people or guides or travel partners or stakeholders that we work with, I think I will always be very committed to sharing, my passion for Japan to the best that I could.
Actually, also, I did want to ask one more thing, and it
Sure.
was, what is coming up next for you?
Oh my gosh, many things to come. Bigger year, bigger teams, more products. We are going to be exploring the luxury tourism world. And we are going to be offering more multi-day trips and experiences. And something exciting is that we are going to launch a travel app that will benefit not just travel companies in Japan, but this is more for like global tour operators. And we will continuously work hard to exceed expectations for the companies, for the services that we have now. But the most exciting thing that's happening is probably the travel app. And I will leave some details of that for now because it's something that we're still working on, but hopefully we will have this ready by the end of the year.
Awesome. Thanks so much for your time, Elizabeth, and this is a great chat.
Thank you very much. So happy to be here, and thank you for your time.